Okay, then let's just directly jump into the next deep dive session and leave the enterprise portals behind us and go to the next one, which is all about the Productsup integration of Pimcore. We presented also during the keynote. And yeah, during the keynote, we already discussed about all the features, or we quickly show you the front-end features. In this session, I will quickly give you some more insights into how the integration is done in Pimcore, some technical aspects, and then I will hand over to William, who will really then give you a deep dive tour through all the possibilities of Productsup. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. So starting on the Pimcore side, we created this Datahub configuration, and on Pimcore side, we actually have to solve one challenge. And this challenge is to flatten the data out of it, because the Pimcore data model, as you know, can be really complex, really multidimensional, and you most probably will like to have some control of how the data is flattened out and sent over to Productsup. Productsup, of course, would also accept multidimensional data, but they will flatten it out on their end. So we decided that you might want to control on Pimcore side, and so we created this Datahub configurations here, which have the goal to flatten out the data and define what data exactly should be sent over to Productsup. There's one addition that Productsup is able to do. Productsup can integrate multiple endpoints and join the data with each other. So what you can do is, what's possible that you can do is you create an endpoint, for example, for products, and then you can create another endpoint for the brands, and there you define then exactly what you can join this data together on Productsup side. In terms of defining the schema, I think I don't need to go much into detail there. Maybe just one quick side note here. Of course, this list will be quite lengthy because you have all the data attributes that you want to send over to Productsup and then publish to any of the channels you want to publish from Productsup. So there you need some kind of intersection of all the attributes that you want to send over. In terms of all this operator stuff like data extractors, formatters, all these kind of things, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We reused the functionality that we already have in the data object grids. So all the features that are available in this data object grids, which actually have a similar challenge in terms of flattening out the data, can be also used here in this Productsup integration configuration. Also, of course, images are delivered to Productsup, and with this configuration of the thumbnail here, you can define which thumbnail should be sent over to Productsup. If you set up nothing, then the original one or a link to original asset is delivered to Productsup. And if you specify a certain thumbnail, then of course this thumbnail is sent over. In terms of the workspaces, they work here similar to the workspaces we know already from the GraphQL endpoint, the portal engine configuration. So you just add the folders you want to publish to Productsup. If for whatever reason this is not enough or gives you not enough flexibility, then you can also provide again a custom service here. And in this custom service, you can implement whatever filter you need in addition to the standard filters. Then the next point is trigger for delivery. And before we discuss this in detail, we need to explain one more thing, and that's how the data is actually delivered to Productsup in this case. And it's not the case that we directly deliver the data to Productsup, but that we build up a cache on Pimcore side where we pre-calculate all the data that is going into Productsup. And then Productsup is retrieving this cache on a regular basis. You can set this up how often you want to do this on Productsup side, if I'm right. And yeah, this trigger for delivery setting here in the Datahub configuration defines when we update the cache on Pimcore side and to be ready to deliver the data to Productsup. And there are actually three options. First of all, you can disable it at all. That means that there is no automatic updating of this cache on Pimcore side, and you need to do it for your own by running a command with a cron job, for example. Second one is deliver it directly on save. That means every time a data object is saved, the cache is updated right away, and the new data is written to it. And then there's the third option, to populate to queue, which means that every time a data object is saved, the data is not updated directly to the cache, but it's just added to a queue. And then there needs to be a command who is running and processes this queue and then updates the cache and does all these heavy calculations that you might have. In production environments, you most likely will have this either disabled or set to populate to queue, because this direct delivery on save can have effects on the saving performance, because every time you save a data object, then of course also this calculations you defined in the schema definition need to be done to pre-calculate the data for Productsup, and this might cost some time. Of course, it depends on your use case, on your setup, and on all of these things there. For running these commands to either populate or process the queue, or also if you have disabled this and update the cache manually, you either can of course create cron jobs, or you can use tools like, for example, a process manager, where you can configure this directly in the backend. Actually, we see there, this is the Datahub export Productsup command that should be executed. We have a couple of options there, like we specify if we just want to process the queue items or do a full export. We can parallelize this thing to speed things up. And if you use, for example, this process manager, you see also the logs here and see what's going on. So really get to know what's going on in terms of preparing the data to be ready for Productsup. And as soon as the data is ready for Productsup, we can then specify the delivery endpoint. And there actually, there's not many things to specify there, only two things. First of all, we can activate the endpoint, and then we specify a security token that needs to be also then configured on Productsup side to secure the connection and secure the data. And then as soon as you save the endpoint, all things are set up and Pimcore is ready to deliver data for Productsup. In addition to the delivery, we also have the option on Pimcore side to accept orders that are sent over from Productsup. So Productsup can collect orders from Amazon, eBay, or whatsoever, and then just push them forward, in this case, to Pimcore. There we can also activate an endpoint, define the folder where it should go, and then as soon as this is configured there, in this folder, Pimcore online shop order objects are created for all the orders that took place in any external channel there. But of course, the most important stuff is to get the product data out of Pimcore to Productsup. And yeah, that's about it, what I wanted to say on Pimcore side. And now I would hand over to William to carry on and work with the data he gets from Pimcore side.
Sure.
So for that, I stop screen sharing, and
thank you
William,
very much. Yes, I will start sharing my screen. A second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, nice. So right now I'm in Productsup, as you said. So this is software as a service software. So you access it through your browser. You don't need to install or maintain anything on your side. I'm a bit deeper in the platform right now than where I usually start a demo, because I wanted to take off where you left, which was the data you're making available for Productsup. So here I'm in the Pimcore account in a project. So a project acts like a folder that will host a site. So here we're in the UK site, and each site that you can have in Productsup can ingest as many data sources as you want and export as many export channels as you want. So here I'm in data sources, and I'm seeing the different Pimcore imports that were set up. So This is the main data source that Christian was showing us earlier. This is the main data source, which is going to add lines, so SKUs or products in the Productsup site. We also have additional data sources, so that will add fields, so additional information for the existing products. In this case, you see we have additional brand information coming from an additional connection in Pimcore. Here I have also a very simple CSV file that's going to append country name in different variants and different codes. And the nice thing with this is that you can add as many import sources as you want. So you could have your main Pimcore import with your core product data, and then have more specialized data depending on your need in each and every Productsup site. Basically. If I just go in the settings of this import, it's a very simple setting, very simple import where you just have the URL that was defined earlier and the token, and that's it. And I have to say, by the way, Christian and all the Pimcore team, this import is really a pleasure to work with. It works very well. It's very flexible on the Pimcore side in terms of what parameters you make available, what products. So it's very flexible, and from there we can pull the data in very easily using our data sources. To add data sources, you can click here and add another Pimcore data source or from other systems. We're not limited, as I said earlier. So again, this is very flexible. Everything I'm going to show you today is in one site again. So in this case, the UK syndication site. And everything I'm going to show you today is a one-time configuration. And the idea is that it's going to be automated once it's set up. And this automation happens mostly in the scheduling. So here in scheduling, I can basically ask my site to automatically run, so import, process, and export the data as often as I want. So here, for example, I have a scheduling every Monday at 12 and 18, and I can very easily add here scheduling as often as I want to make sure my data, again, is going to be triggered every day, in this case at 20 o'clock, import, processed, and exported. So everything you see, the idea is that all the manual work that you're doing currently to syndicate data to the different channels, marketing, retailers, marketplaces, is going to be automated. So this you can do very easily with a few clicks. And by the way, one of the big added values that we bring is that everything is no coding required. It's very easy to use for business users, and it's accessible through a very friendly UI. So this was data sources. I'm not going to spend much more time on it because we have a Pimcore in the backend, which is doing a very good job to making data available. So just maybe taking a step back in my site. So this is a sidebar where I can access all the different sections of my Productsup site. So going one step back to the dashboard, I can see basically have an overview how many products were imported from my Pimcore instance in this case, how many were exported. So we have more products exported because we have multiple export channels. Here, you have a little history of how long the processing time took. And the next part I want to show you is the export themselves, so where we define where is the data going to go to actually once we have improved it. So if I go to exports, as you can see, again, we have multiple exports just for this site. So Google Merchant Center, Facebook Dynamic Ads, Amazon. We also support BMECAT file format export. We can export data to Excel. And this one is interesting. I'll come back to it a bit later. So this is a fully customizable export that you can use to cover any need you have, basically, because you can define your own fields, your own rules, how often it will be exported. So if you have something very personal, technical, in-house that you need to cover in terms of data feed, we can help you with this too. But coming back to our core really features, you can have as many exports as you want for each site. And you can very easily add more export by clicking this button and scrolling through our 1,600 exports that we have all listed here. So I'm not going to go into each one of them, but there are a lot. And it's very easy to add with a click of a button and get your data ready and out. So again, the idea is that you won't have to develop specific connections or exports or rules. This is all done here very easily, automatically, with preset conditions and rules that you can set up yourself. If I go maybe just in a little bit more detail in Google Merchant Center, for example, here in the setup, for each export, I can define the destination. So in essence, what Productsup will do once it has processed the data is going to generate either a file or an API call. Usually files a CSV, or it can be an XML, it can be a JSON, and then it's going to send this API call or file to a certain place. So if I click here on Add Destination, I can see the different available destinations. Some of them are very generics, like an SFTP server, post request, SFTP, but some are specific to the export. So in this case, for the Google Merchant Center export, we can drop the file on dedicated Google Merchant Center FTP and SFTP, as you can see. And here again, we help you get the data out in the right format, but also importantly at the right place, so you're sure it gets pulled in by your end channel as fast as possible. So this is for the export settings. You can change the name of your feed. You can limit how many products get supported. You can have multiple destinations. But just go a bit deeper in settings. You can choose separating a CSV enclosure. We can export XML, for which we are very flexible, because you can directly type in here an XSLT script, which is then going to generate any XML structure you want. And so that's doable for each and every export. And again, no need to code. You can add an export, set it up, set the destination, and the data will be exported every time your site runs. We can fill out also Excel sheets. I will show you a bit later, but of course, a lot of channels work with APIs or things like that. It's great, but in the reality also of the field, we noticed that a lot of retailers and other actors do actually prefer having what we call item setup sheets, so Excel files basically with product data, sometimes with macros, and we can also cover this and basically automatically fill out these Excel sheets for you, following the rules that need to be followed by the validation in the macro, should there be one. So this is for export channels. So again, 1,600 export channels at your fingertip. Just click on Add Export and configure it, and you're ready to go. Now let's see a bit further on in data view, where we're going to have a chance to see actually how the data comes into and flows through the Productsup platform. So if I click here on data view, and it's loading. So here we see the data, pretty usual view of the data as it has been imported in the Productsup platform. So this is the data as it comes from the data sources defined earlier. So in our case, Pimcore data. So you should recognize actually the products that you saw in the demos this morning and earlier with Christian. And here we are at the import level. Now, if I click on this drop down, you can see the different steps through which the data transits in Productsup. So here we are at the import level. Data will then go at the intermediate level, which is kind of a golden record within Productsup, where we can already modify data, split it, enrich it, and get it ready for all export channels. And then further down, you can see all the different exports that we set up previously in the export section. And we are going to have a chance to get the data ready and compliant for each and every one of these export channels. But first, some very basic features I can show you from this section is we have analyze features, so you can in one click very quickly see how many values are different values there are in the software, how many times they appear, and you can even filter by these values. If I click here, I will only see products which have this value in the body style field, two-door fast back grouping. And it sounds like a very simple thing. It's very basic, but a lot of in a lot of situations, it's hard to see all of your data aggregated from different sources and sort it and review it basically as it comes out. So this is something that is really out of the box and easy to manipulate, and that allows you to go through your data and just have an idea of what's in your system before it goes out. Now, if we go to maybe close to what you saw a bit earlier in the video you saw, if I go to a specific export channel, so Google Merchant Center, for example, I will see another view of the data, similar, but here you will see the column titles have changed. And these are the fields that are expected for each product by Google Merchant Center. And if I go in this dropdown, if I go to readiness, I have an analysis of whether my data is compliant with the Google Merchant Center rules. And the big added value that we bring in terms of data feed and syndication is you don't have to go out anymore to Google Merchant Center or one of these other export channels to check what their requirements are. We help you to figure out whether the data is ready to go out and to perform. And again, if I click here in description, the sidebar opens and I see these analyzer tests that tell me whether the data complies. And again, this is all hosted on the Productsup platform. For the 1,600 export channels that we have, you will have analyzer tests that will help you visualize your data, see if it complies for each one of the export channel. And on top of that, doesn't stop here, you have suggestions to help you comply, to help you change your data for each and every export channel. So for example, here, one of the rules is fix the HTML, have no caps locks, this is fine. Here we see, again, we have HTML tags and we need to decode it. So if I click on these two little buttons, what's happening in the background is the platform is refreshing, is going to add rules that are going to, in real time, change and update the data. So here you see there's a little refreshing going on, and you will have a chance to see the data before and after as the rule is applied. So this is description before, with the readiness before, description now, and how the readiness has changed. And you see, for example, that this little P tag has been removed by our rule. And again, as you see, there's no coding required. There's no specific skills to have. You don't even have to be an expert in terms of the export channel you're working with. We do this work for you. We tell you how the data is expected in terms of format, and we help you to comply. If I just close here and go to price, I immediately see that price is the only other field where I might have an issue. I see these rules again telling me what the problem might be. So the price in this case needs to have the currency at the end. So if I go here in the pencil, this is where I'm going to have a chance to change the data more manually for each field. If I go to price, I'm just going to activate one of the rules I prepared beforehand. So this is one of the little rules I was telling you about that was added automatically previously. Activate it, save, the platform refreshes. This rule just appends the column currency to the column price. A little space before. And again, you see the price column before, the readiness, what it looked like, and the price column now, its readiness, and how the rule has changed the data. So we see the euro has been appended to the value, and now we are 100% ready. And if we go in a bit more detail, notice we have quite a technical audience today, so take a bit more time. If I go here in large view, these little rules that we have around 200 of them. If I just go to core boxes, we can sort them using this drop-down. And these allow you to modify your data to make it compliant, again, for each and every export. You can multiply, do mathematical operations. You can remove HTML tags, set a value if it's empty, set a static value if you always want, for example, to have your brand name in a certain field, and so on. Or is it simple things like remove consecutive white space from a description, something that is very easy to miss when you're working in different tools, but can penalize you when you send data out to certain marketing channels. So all these rules are there. It's very easy to click and drag and add them to basically your connections, and this would modify the data and would immediately have a preview of what the data looks like. I'm just going to remove this rule, save. And so this is our rule engine, again, very flexible, immediate feedback on what the data looks like. And in some cases, you will have a chance to even have suggestions based on the analyzer tests. So we know now this data is ready, has been made compliant for Google Merchant Center. So you know your feed. Once you press export, it will go to Google Merchant Center and it will be accepted. So you are not going to have a nasty report or bug report or logs, or sometimes you may even have penalties or things like that, which is not nice. And because this will affect, of course, your time to market and your performance and your relationship with these export channels, which can be critical. But we don't just stop there. On top of readiness, so this is where we were, so we know data is ready. So the readiness is about compliance, requirements. We also do optimization. And optimization is about not compliance. We know the data feed would be accepted. It's about performance and making sure your data feed is performing as best as possible for this export based on this export recommendation. So some export channels will tell you you don't have to, but it's recommended to follow this or this rule. For example, a field must not be longer than 100 characters, or please append brand or color to your title, things like that. And using this example, because in this case, this is what happens. This is all the recommendations. And one of the recommendations for this export channel is if you have a strong brand name, add it at the beginning of the title. And here again, if I click on this little rule, it's suggested to me. I don't even have to go the rules engine I showed you earlier. If I click, the platform is going to refresh again, and it's going to append automatically the brand column before the title, prepend in this case. And same as previously, we see the data has been changed. So we see the title before, the optimization level before, and how it looked like. And now we see it, the new version, we see optimization has jumped to 100%, and we see that all the fields now have their brands appended before. So you know very easily, you can be very confident when using Productsup that you can get your data out of Pimcore first. You can view it. You can prepare it for each and every export channel. You have an immediate feedback analysis through these analyzer tests, which we host for you. And you can modify the data to optimize it, make it ready using our rules engine very easily, and have a feedback on how it works. So this is all available. As you can see, no coding required. It's very simple, very flexible. Also, I want to highlight 2 points. First thing is that this is a one-time setup. So at this point, I want to make everybody comfortable. You're not going to be doing this every day in Productsup. You will have an integration manager and a training, and you will have a one-time setup of your data coming out of Pimcore through Productsup into the export channels, and then it will be automated. And you can automate, tell the Productsup site to export as often as you want your data out, once a week, once a day, twice a day. You're going to have really different requirements depending on export channels, but we can cover all of them. So it will be automated. All this work is done once, and we help you to do it. And the second thing also I want to reassure you is that in this demo, we have 171 products, but our platform is really well optimized to handle thousands or tens of thousands or millions of products. I think the customers that have the most products handle several 100 million products per day, per export. So we scale very nicely, and we can handle this, which is, of course, critical in terms of if it's small data feeds, I think everybody has an in-house solution to handle these kind of situations. But once you have multiple territories and dozens of exports and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of products, it gets really complex to just see, change, update, and export a data feed. And this is exactly what we do, and where we can help you comply, be more agile, reach the digital shelf more quickly, and market your products in a very efficient way. So this is the data view, again, where you can see your data, optimize it, make it ready for each and every export channel. Again, if I go to another one, I would have another view, and I can go through exactly the same process to make this data ready. And because, again, this is the little catch, each and every one of these exports is going to ask you to have the data in a little bit different format or way, in different column titles, and it doesn't make sense to handle this in the PIM or in your Pimcore instance. It makes sense to handle it at the export level in a dedicated tool like Productsup. So if I move forward a bit to go really to the core of the platform, which is data flow. So if I click here, we're going to see how actually I connected the fields from import to intermediate to export for each one and every of these. I'm just going to make this screen a bit more simple. Okay, so this is data flow. This is really the heart of our platform. You see the three columns we sometimes use in our material, but as a symbol of our platform. So the left column is import. So these are all the fields that were imported into the Productsup site from Pimcore mostly. So this is all that's coming on in from Pimcore. We have here intermediate level. So this is, as I was telling you earlier, an intermediate step where we can already separate data fields, modify them, enrich them for down the line on the right, each and every export. So here you see the Facebook dynamic ads export, but we're going to have a chance to change the connections for each and every export using, again, this dropdown. So here you see each and every export that we set for the site. So if I come back to the Google Merchant Center example I'm speaking about, the first two columns stay the same. This one has been updated. And this one now shows the fields that Google Merchant Center expects. And you see the blue ones, here we help you comply again. These blue fields are the mandatory fields for Google Merchant Center. So again, you do not need to go out and look what are the mandatory fields, what are the optional fields, what data is expected in each one of the fields. We help you comply. And you can see you can very easily connect the different fields. If I click on price, for example, here you're going to see the little sidebar. You will recognize it from earlier. It's the same one. And this is the rule to append the currency after the price. And this rule you can see in the mapping, this little bubble. So this is the little bubble appending the currency to the price. So it's very flexible. And for example, we also have, let's say if you want to add custom fields, you can also very easily go to the bottom here and just add a field manually. And just take any thing that you want, here click, and bring it here, and that's it. This field is now connected to the one from intermediate. I'm just going to refresh the page so it gets reordered and we have it a bit more comfortable position. Here it is. And you see this field has little stripes. My custom field has little stripes because it's a field that I created myself manually. It's not one of the pre-saved or mandatory fields for this export. But it's that easy, and if I click here again, I can use or add any of the rules I wish to modify the data and get it ready in the form that I want for this field again. And if I don't want it anymore, I just remove it, remove this field, and I'm back to my previous configuration. Again, all this, everything I'm showing you is a lot, looks quite complex. You don't have to do it every day. This mapping is done once, and then it stays here. And every time the site is triggered, it will import all the data, send it through all these pipes with all these little rules, and then send it out to each and every export channel. So this is a one-time setup that you can very easily change or modify, but you set it up once, you set up a site to be triggered, and that's it. We have some nice features to help you get set up quickly. So if I go to, for example, to the one I was speaking to you about, my custom export, you should load the new one. You see all the fields here are customizable. I just created a few, and to help you go faster, we have little automap function. So here, if I say I want to automap all the fields from intermediate to export, Productsup is going to try and figure out which fields have a similar name and automatically connect the columns from the intermediate level to the export. So we also have versioning, so you can save a mapping, you can reuse it in for another export or for another site. So this is also very flexible. You can filter columns. So if you have a lot of data, of course, you want to be able to filter, which you can. You can preview the data as it comes in. So here you see one of the products as it was imported from Pimcore. And all this makes mapping very easy and intuitive, and no coding again required. And it's a one-time setup, so don't worry, you won't have to go in there always. We can even add here, what I'm showing you is these little bubbles. We have rules that can add a description, and then you can even leave comments for your colleagues. If you haven't been in the setup for a long time, you can write a little note to yourself to know what's been done in the mapping, so you are aware of all the little tricks and tools you used to get the data compliant. So this is data flow. I think I showed a lot of this. This is really the heart of the platform. Again, import, intermediate, export. You can do the mapping totally custom for each one of the exports very easily, and change it and use our rules to modify the data. Maybe taking one step back, everything I showed you again was in one site. So one site can have as many import sources as you want, as many export destinations as you want, and you can have custom mapping for each and every export. If I take one step back, actually two step backs, let's go to the Pimcore account. Here I am at the account level. And what you see here, these three lines are projects. So projects act like folders. So if I open this folder, Europe Syndication project, there are currently two sites, so Germany syndication and UK syndication. Everything you saw today was in this site, the UK syndication, but you can have as many sites as you want. And this is very handy, very practical. If, for example, you're a global company, you want to market your products worldwide in different territories with different requirements, different channels, you can separate all your different imports and exports in each and every site. So for example, if you want to have only your Asia Pacific syndication needs in one project, you can, and then you can have different sites. This is totally customizable. And the nice things too is that we have user management. So in this case, I can see all the projects and all the sites in the Pimcore account. But if you had different teams working in different territories, you can very easily set up that the Asia Pacific team only sees this project, the North America team only sees this project. So for USA and Canada syndication, for example, and the Europe team only see this project for European territories. Because again, I think as you're going global and you're doing marketing worldwide on a lot of different channels with a lot of different users, we need to break down this complexity, and we help you doing this by hosting the export channel requirements, by letting you change your data with a rule engine, very easy to use, no coding required, by also separating all these data feeds in different sites, and by having an automation with the triggering function I showed you earlier in the data sources. So We have 5 minutes left. I can show you quite a few other things. Christian, did you have anything, questions or idea? I didn't see the chat at all.
There were a couple of questions, but I think most of them already got answered by colleagues of yours. There is one question was not directly in there, but it also occurred to me during watching your presentation. How is it with getting feedback and getting reports about what data was exported to what channel, and if there was any data missing, for example, if the export runs fully automatic, then maybe some data is missing at some point. So can you show us something in this regards?
So, of course, as I said, of course, it's a good question, because the processing of data export is automated. So someday, if one of the fields in one of your product is empty or wrong, you might have wrong data going through Productsup and maybe out. But to prevent this, if I go to monitoring here, we can set up monitoring alert that can send an alert if ever there's something wrong. So in this case, you see this one is if there is percentage of missing values in mandatory fields. So in this case, I set the threshold at 1%. So if this is the case, Productsup will automatically stop the processing and send out an email notification to a predefined mailing list that you can manually define. So this is something also you can be sure that once the setup is there and it's running, if there is any kind of error or missing, you will be alerted, and this is not just simply going to run and send out something that's wrong upstream from your side. So you can set, again, here by clicking here, add error event, you can add different monitoring events. So for example, if I click here on the export stage, you can see all the different kinds of issues that can be notified and where you can get feedback on this. So again, very easy to set up, no coding required. You can set these monitoring alerts per site or per projects and have a very good view, again, of what is going on. And for example, here again, this alert is for this export. So you can really very granularly define what export is being monitored, or if it's the whole site, or if it's the whole project. So this is also something very handy. Maybe one last thing I can show you that is quite useful. If I go to data services, this is something, data services are basically little
you have 2 minutes left, William. So
I have 2 minutes left? Okay. Should we do last thing, or was there another question that needed to be answered? Should I go on?
Maybe let's just shortly discuss what Jan Walter is asking. He's asking if there are any events that can be fired to update the data. And it was already also answered a bit. And there is one thing open, I think, which also needs some answer from our side, from Pimcore side. So he asks if it's possible to deliver incremental exports or only complete ones. And the answer to the question is, as far as I know, yes, because also the Pimcore side of the endpoint allows you to filter the data that is delivered to Productsup to certain timestamps. So, for example, you really can update just the most current data, and so don't need to import all the millions or multi-millions data sets you have in Pimcore and want to export to Productsup, but really just can import certain data which was updated because of stock updates or pricing updates or whatsoever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so this is possible, definitely. Also, if you wanted to push, so of course, in this case, I didn't go into too much detail about it because I'm assuming you would have a Pimcore instance where we could pull data from, but Productsup does have an API, I can share the link a bit later with you, that allows you to push data into a Productsup site. So if you can visit, I'll share this URL a bit later, but if this doc is available online, but if you want to push data into an existing Productsup site, you can do it, including deltas, so only parts of the data.
Okay, so thank you, William. I guess we are at the end of the session. If there are any further questions, there is the booth for Productsup, so feel free to contact there or also at the Pimcore booth. So we are really happy to answer your questions. And if we oversaw a question here, and this counts for all the deep dive sessions. Please don't be mad at us. We don't do it deliberately. We just didn't see it, so please ask it again.
And this is all live. If you just go to people and type in Productsup, all my colleagues should pop up, and we are happy to discuss in more detail any questions you have.
Okay, so thank you very much, William.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks for having us. It's great. You have a great product, and it was very nice to demo today.